I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel condemns the deadly terror attack in Manchester. The U.S. president leaves a shocking statement out of his meeting with the Palestinian president, and we'll reveal an inside look at the unusual incident between Trump and his wife that's taking over world headlines. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. We're opening today with a look at the municipality building here in Tel Aviv, which has been lit up with images of the American and Israeli flags since Donald Trump's arrival to the country. Now, the color of the building has changed to reflect the flag of the United Kingdom, which brings us to the most shocking news of the day. The Israeli people are today expressing support for the United Kingdom following a deadly suicide bombing in Manchester. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is condemning the attack in the strongest possible terms. At least 22 people, including children, were killed and 59 others wounded as they were leaving a performance by the American singer Ariana Grande around 10:30 last night.
We heard the explosion when we got to the foyer doors, and we just looked behind us and there was chaos. And in front of us, people were running past the doors, screaming, looking behind them, and we were in two minds as to whether to stay in the arena and just seek shelter. We ran, and people were screaming around us and pushing down the stairs to go outside, and people were falling down.
The Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem is expressing shock over the horrific incident and is conveying the nation's thoughts and prayers to the victims' family and friends. The Israeli ambassador to the UK, Mark Regev, has lowered the flag at the Israeli embassy in London to half-mast in a demonstrative display of solidarity that the people of the Jewish state stand with the British public at this difficult time. This is the deadliest assault in Britain since 4 British Muslims killed 52 people in suicide bombings on London's transport system on July 7th of 2005. Investigators are now trying to ascertain whether the Manchester terrorist was acting alone or is part of a larger network. The Islamic State is, however, claiming responsibility either way. It's now the eve of Jerusalem Day, marking the 50th anniversary of the city's reunification under Israeli sovereignty. Israelis have never understood why the international community refuses to recognize Jerusalem as their capital. But for just a little while last night, Israelis finally got the recognition they've been craving from the White House of all places. Even if it was a mistake, Israelis were happy to see the tagline Jerusalem, Israel on the official White House website. The location appeared on a notice announcing upcoming live-streamed comments expected from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and visiting U.S. President Donald Trump. The headline broke with decades of official American policy and it was later removed, although you can still find screen captures on YouTube. During other Trump-related events, by the way, the White House listed only Jerusalem without mention of a country. So far, no explanation has been forthcoming over the apparent slip-up, and even if it was short, Israelis are pleased to actually see Jerusalem finally identified as their city. Despite his campaign pledge to do so, the American president has not recognized Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. And during his visit here, he's never once referred to the city as even being part of the Jewish state. In fact, Trump's Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said earlier that the president would be visiting Tel Aviv, which she called the home of Judaism, despite the fact that most of the summit was held in Jerusalem. U.S. President Donald Trump has kicked off the second day of his official visit to the Holy Land with a brief meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. And what's making news about the get-together is the American leader's decision not to call for a Palestinian state. The American leader traveled to the Palestinian presidential palace in the West Bank city of Bethlehem. Newspapers from Haaretz to Bloomberg are going nuts over Trump's avoidance of any reference to a Palestinian state. Trump did call for a peace agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians, but at no point did he use the phrases two-state solution or Palestinian state in a seeming break from long-standing U.S. tradition. Abbas's speech was more of what we expect from the Palestinian president, an endorsement of the two-state paradigm in combination with revanchist language. The Palestinian leader implicitly rejected Israeli rights to the Western Wall when he referred to Trump's visit to holy sites in occupied East Jerusalem. His demands for Israel to negotiate with hunger-striking Palestinian terrorists were countered by Trump's implicit criticism of the PA. The president said that peace can never take root in an environment where violence is tolerated, funded, and even rewarded. Many are taking this as a direct criticism of the PA practice of paying salaries to imprison terrorists. It was a surprising move from the unpredictable U.S. leader, fresh off of the heels of a summit with Arab and Muslim leaders in Saudi Arabia. Trump is promising that the Arab nations are on board with his plans, but are they ready to give up on a Palestinian state? Much of the focus of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the Holy Land is on efforts to revive the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. In addition to that, one of the strongest messages coming out of the president's Middle East trip is that Iranian aggression might actually be succeeding in pushing Arab countries together in a positive way, while paving a much deeper path to friendship with Israel. The leader came to Jerusalem directly from Riyadh, where he met with more than 50 leaders of Arab and Muslim nations.
I will say I just left Saudi Arabia. The king, we had an amazing 2 days, and their feeling toward Israel is really very positive. Tremendous progress has been made. I think a lot of that progress has been made because of the aggression of Iran, and it's forcing people together in a very positive way.
The fact that you've taken a very strong position on Iran, different position, not only helps security, but also helps propel the possibility of reconciliation and peace between Israel and Iran. And that will help reconciliation between Israel and Palestine. Of course, not all like to step before the cameras, but I do look forward to our discussions, which I think are pregnant with possibilities.
It's no surprise that Israel doesn't love Iran based on Tehran's threats against the very existence of the Jewish state. Many Sunni Arab states also hold highly negative views of the radical Shiite Islamic Republic based on its territorial intervention and support of regional terrorism.
These leaders voice concerns we all share about ISIS, about Iran's rising ambitions and rolling back its gains, and about the menace of extremism that has spread through too many parts of the Muslim world. I'm encouraged that they pledge cooperation to confront terrorism and the hateful ideology that drives it so hard.
It won't be simple, but for the first time in many years, and Mr. President, for the first time in my lifetime, I see a real hope for change. The Arab leaders who you met yesterday could help change the atmosphere, and they could help create the conditions for a realistic peace. These are all great signs on your historic visit.
U.S. President Donald Trump is in Israel with a new push for peace talks, and he's conspicuously avoided endorsing a Palestinian state. This follows a statement from Zionist Union leader Isaac Herzog that a Palestinian state isn't possible under current circumstances. Are we seeing a move away from the two-state solution, and what does that mean for the prospects of peace? I'm here with Knesset member Erel Margalit from the Zionist Union. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with the press conference that we saw between President Trump and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas today. Trump did not say anything about a Palestinian state. Are you concerned that in any way the U.S. is drifting away from its past framework?
No, I don't think so. I think that the main message that he brought perhaps was not today, was yesterday, because in Saudi Arabia he was with 30 Arab countries, and the Arab League initiative was resonating in a big way when he came to Israel. Two major things I think happened that Israel should be pleased with, and then we need to make some moves in order to make it happen. One is that there was a big statement among the Arab League countries that they see extremists against moderates in the Middle East, not Arabs against Jews. So whether it's ISIS, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Iran, we have now a common set of enemies that we want to create an alliance in order to address them. Two, economic development. There's a big set of discussions about a regional deal with Israel involved with economic development initiatives. But all this is in the framework of the Arab League's initiative that was presented to Israel under Netanyahu, and there was no answer in the last few years. So Israel needs to answer back. And in the heart of that agreement lies a two-state solution strategy, which is a necessary condition for having a broad regional agreement. And I think that it's not Trump that's going to change things for us, or you have one American president or another. It's really about what Israel's doing in a proactive manner rather than being reactive. And I think that it's Israel's interest, it's our interest to take advantage of the opportunity in the region and to lead a process forward.
Now, what is your take on the new Palestinian economic incentives that we've seen Trump recently release in the last week?
Well, all this is good. I mean, creating jobs is good. I'm working on a variety of initiatives that we're working on together with the Palestinians, whether it's an industrial park near Jenin and Gilboa, or whether it's a new phase of Atarot in Jerusalem, or whether it's a project on the Jordan, including the Jordanians, Israelis, and the Palestinians. But all these economic development initiatives are great to improve the atmosphere. We need a political initiative that complements that and makes all of this a much broader set of things. The fact that the Arab League is ready, the fact that it's calling our enemies its enemies, it's an opportunity that doesn't always come back. So it's now the time to take this two-state solution strategy along the way that Israel wants, not along the way that other people want, and to put it with a security border under Jordan, with 3 settlement blocks that you can swap land for, with a creative agreement on the refugee issues, especially when they can be maybe reconstructed in the respective countries, and perhaps with a creative suggestion in Jerusalem.
Now, will Trump be the man to help orchestrate this happen?
I don't think so. I think that Trump doesn't get into too many details, but I think that the Arab League is very insistent on a few things, and Israel needs to answer. We don't agree, whether you're on the right or left in Israel, we don't agree to all their proposals, but they created a framework that shows not only what Israel has to give up, what Israel could receive on a regional level for an agreement with the Palestinians. And I think that's the opportunity we need to take advantage of. And sometimes, unfortunately, in this government, it seems like their goal is to not have any agreement, is to derail the agreement, is to not talk about serious progress in the negotiations. And that's my criticism for Netanyahu, and that's why I want to be the leader of the Labor Party and the Zionist Union and bring a new
we have
government.
to ask you about that. And April was a big month for you because you made a big announcement. Can you tell us about what you are hoping to do and the role you're hoping to play in the Zionist Union Labor Party?
Well, we have elections on Independence Day, July 4th, and I hope it's going to be the Independence Day of Labor and the Zionist Union, and we're going to rally our camp to get back into power, to bring some centralist groups, to bring some moderate right groups, and to try to bring a new vision that perhaps would let Netanyahu, after 4 terms, take a vacation. Because I think it's time that there would be an international-style leadership in Israel that looks after security, that looks after economic development, but that takes advantage of what's happening in the region and moves Israel forward rather than portray Israel as a fort that's a standalone project.
Now, I want to ask you, you've said in the past that, many people who identify as being left are scared to necessarily share that identity with the world here in Israel. Why do you think it is that the right has been holding power for so very long in Israel?
Well, I don't know. You heard Bitan from the right say, anybody who's been the chief of staff or the head of the Mossad or the head of the Shabak drank something in the water and became left. Anybody who's been involved in real security understand that we need to use force when we need to, but we also need to have a strategy that uses our brains as well as statespeople. And so I think that, Rabin's way, Ben-Gurion's way, they came from the big left camp, the labor movement, center-left, and I think it's time that we come back in a big way. And sometimes when they call
When you say that, does that mean changing the Labor Party and making it become more left?
No, I think that it's taking the values of pioneering, of going to the new frontier, of creating something new in the Galilee and the Negev, of taking Israel as a proactive role in terms of getting an agreement in the region, together with security on one hand, but reaching our hands for economic development on the other side. All these things are symbols and things that the new generation, the startup nation generation that I belong to, needs to and wants to move forward to take some of these ideas of win-win to the political level, not just the business level.
Well, I think the bottom line is that whether you identify as left or right, we all have a common goal here, which is to reach a peace deal in Israel. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
While U.S. President Trump is being greeted with pomp and circumstance by regional leaders, not all local residents are quite as welcoming. In fact, there's been a few peaceful protests in Israel and several violent demonstrations in the Palestinian territories. A riot broke out near a West Bank crossing outside of Jerusalem during an Arab demonstration in support of hunger-striking Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Activists waved anti-Trump posters with shoe prints on the president's face, which is a huge insult for Muslims. Captions on the sign slammed American policy as a shame for humanity and a breach of Palestinian rights. The activists hurled rocks at Israeli soldiers manning the checkpoint, who responded by firing tear gas into the crowd. In Gaza, residents burned effigies of Trump as well as an Israeli flag and photographs of American and Israeli leaders. Children held signs denouncing America as the ultimate devil.
ردا على رأس الإرهاب ترامب وردا على من يحتضن رأس الإرهاب ويصف من مكانه مقاومة شعبنا في الدفاع عن أرضه وقتلة أطفاله يصفه بالإرهاب.
Another protest was sponsored by a left-wing mixed Israeli-Arab political faction in front of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. The marchers voiced opposition to the Trump administration's policies on the environment, global warming, women's rights, and other issues.
We think he's a danger to Israel, to the U.S., to the world. We want social justice, we want peace. Everything that Donald Trump stands against, we stand for, and vice versa.
I'm here to protest the Donald Trump administration and the fact that he comes here to Israel, and while he promotes misogyny and he promotes anti-women equality, and I'm here to show him that he cannot come into Israel with these type of ideas and values and expect a warm welcoming. He's not going to get that.
The grassroots Women Wage Peace Group also rallied in Jerusalem, where members called for a diplomatic solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A group of American Democrats protested near the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. They said they came to show support for peace, human rights, and equality, and to reject Trump's agenda. They described as dangerous, right-wing, and hateful. This is also Melania Trump's first foreign visit since becoming U.S. First Lady. While she's often targeted by criticism for keeping a relatively low profile, she's always made it a point to spend time with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's wife, Sarah. In fact, the two ladies appear to genuinely like one another, especially since they feel the same way about the media.
I can testify to that.
Because the majority of the people of Israel, unlike the media, they love us. So we tell them how you are great and they love you.
We have something very much in common.
Very much in common. We talk about it.
Mrs. Trump came to Washington especially this past February so she could personally escort Mrs. Netanyahu on a tour of important sites. In a reciprocal sign of friendship, the Israeli leader's wife today showed the former Slovenian model a little of Jerusalem. While their husbands were stuck in official meetings, the two first ladies visited the Hadassah Hospital in the mountainous neighborhood of Ein Kerem in the Israeli capital, where they greeted hospital personnel and spoke with kids on the playground. You'd think the world's scrutiny of Trump's historic visit to Israel would be focused on the possibility of a landmark peace agreement or some other major breakthrough, but nope. The internet is on fire over what appears to be the latest sign of the U.S. president's alleged marital spat. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held the hand of his wife Sarah while escorting America's first couple down the red carpet right after the Trumps arrived in Tel Aviv. But when the American leader appeared to reach out for his own wife Melania's hand, she seemed to swat it away. Some major news outlets like BuzzFeed, People magazine, and the Huffington Post are actually replaying the moment repeatedly as part of a debate as to whether it may have been the president who spurned the wife's attempt. The image is fueling rumors of discord in the marriage. So forget visits to the Temple Mount, the site of Jesus' crucifixion, or the biblical town of his birth. For many people, the most enduring, memorable image of the president's entire trip might be the flick of the First Lady's wrist. Now, if you turn on local Israeli news, you're not necessarily going to see U.S. President Donald Trump's face plastered across the screen. Rather, an Israeli Knesset member is making headlines for a controversial selfie that, surprise, involves the American leader. Knesset jokester and alleged pimp Oren Chazan somehow managed to bypass a line of dignitaries to get his hands on Trump at the American leader's welcoming ceremony in Ben Gurion Airport. He even made his way past the appalled Israeli prime minister where he secured the absurd selfie. Prime Minister Netanyahu did try to stop the Knesset prankster before it was too late, but his attempt to push Chazan's arm away was unsuccessful, and now Chazan's Trump selfie has gone viral with almost 20,000 Facebook likes. Chazan has managed to not only anger the Israeli leader, but members of his very own Likud party as well. One member of the Likud Central Committee is now pushing to kick the 35-year-old MK out of the Knesset. To be honest, Chazan's 2 years in the Knesset have been marked by controversy and antics. But more than anything, it's the allegations that he provided clients with drugs and prostitutes as a former casino manager in Bulgaria that may damage his party. Chazan has denied the allegations, saying, quote, "I enjoyed myself, but can you imagine me with prostitutes? Look at me, come on." All right, now let's take a little break from all of this Trump news. A cool new startup called Shukit has just made its way to the public, and it's going to make our lives a lot easier. Joining us now are the co-founders of the company, Asaf Chachimon and Miki Osadon, to tell us more. Thank you guys so much for joining us and giving us a break from all of this Trump news.
It's great to be here.
All right, so what is Shukit? Tell us about what this company does, and I love the name, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, Shukit is a real-time on-demand platform for groceries. We address two pains. The first pain is the tough life of getting high-quality groceries for a decent price.
Right.
And the second pain is the struggle of suppliers within the fruits and vegetable industry to manage their supply. Our system basically connects the demand to the supply in real time. We have three segments within our triangle. The first one is the demand, which means the orders of our clients, both B2B and B2C. The supply, which means the farmers, the authorized distributors, the wholesale markets, etc., etc. And the delivery.
Interesting.
Which is Get Taxi, Bringos, companies like that.
All right, so what was the thought process? How did you come up with this idea?
So both Miki and I are coming from the ad tech background. Within the previous company that we worked for, we were optimizing the buying process of advertising, advertising slots.
Right.
That's what we were doing, and our system, what our system did is basically maximizing the things you can do with your money in terms of buying ad spaces. And we wanted to kind of copy the technology from the ad tech business and transfer it into a much more interesting space.
Yeah, well, food is an interesting space. All right, guys, well, I guess the question is, what is next for your company?
So right now, in terms of the current status, we're currently 6 employees. We're located in central Tel Aviv at the urban space in Kol Bo Shalom. And we're currently closing our seed round.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I believe that the next steps will be copying what we're doing within the fruit and vegetable space into other spaces. And after our tech will be the way we want it to be, we want to launch this product in other markets as well.
All right, well, it looks like something that is going to be useful for a lot of different people, for those of us who are tired of getting lost in the middle of the shuk, but thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. It happens to everyone, those awkward moments that remind you that you're no better than everyone else and probably worse. So today's word is fadicha, which means an embarrassing screw-up. You could be taking out the garbage when the bag breaks and leaks all over the stairwell, or you could be going out for a hot night on the town, blissfully unaware of the shakshuka stains on your shirt. Those are some big fadichot. The word originally comes from Arabic, leading some smarky Israelis, or snarky Israelis, there's a fadicha for you, to say that it became part of the Hebrew language after the Six-Day War, when Egyptian President Abdul Nasser's attempts to wipe out Israel turned into another huge fadicha. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 64 or 18 degrees Celsius. And tomorrow is expected to be fair with a slight rise in temperatures and a high of 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.59 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.